Recording in progress. So then we can just get right into the coding. As they said in the actual lesson, we're getting, a good way through the project. I'm sure people are, maybe losing a little bit of steam, and are like, why would I need to do any of this kind of stuff? And maybe some of this is a little intimidating, this auth stuff. But can guarantee you it's very, very important, especially in this day and age when a lot of stuff is just being vibe coded. And is this super insecure. Having some basic level of security measurements is pretty important because there's other things that people on the internet love more than poking holes in weak security apps, even if it doesn't accomplish anything. So this is important stuff. Comrade agrees. So we're just gonna get right into it. So, I had my meeting controls, bring up the chat. Okay, kill this server. That was from last time. We gotta actually go out. So now we're in store API, gotta go out again. And we gotta CD into the JWT basics. Okay. And we also got a CD into starter. Okay, so and clear. All right, so he does a couple things in this. The big major ones is, of course, new controllers, new errors, like custom API errors, and new routes. So in terms of new code, that's most of what he does. So we're just going to go through those and just talk about a little bit what they do. So I think first I actually want to get the errors out of the way, because those are the ones that actually get imported into the controllers, which is the first thing that he does. But I'm going to do it a little bit different so that we can just go straight down the line of things. So he makes 3 new errors. He makes what are they? For bad requests, just custom errors in general. Well, actually, we already have that one, but he changes it a little bit, and then unauthenticated. So let's just make our new ones first. So this one's going to be bad request.js. It's going to be really simple. We're going to bring in our custom error. This one, actually, let's just change this. All he does is just get rid of the status code, I believe, and just has a super message. There we go. And if we're not familiar with it's been a while since we worked with classes, and you're wondering like what all this stuff does, essentially, what super message is doing here is super, whenever you're creating a class that extends from another class, like here, so custom API error is extending error, which, so this is like in JavaScript, what is happening behind the scenes essentially is that there are I personally call them the God data types, right? Where there's like a blueprint for all these different data types, arrays, strings, even errors, dates, all that kind of stuff. And when you create a new one, it's essentially cloning, making a clone. This is why I call it the God data type, is because it's making a new one in its image, right? So that's kind of what's happening behind the scenes whenever you make anything in JavaScript. Whoa, and that's what's happening here with this error, is that there is a pre-existing error class, just like this one. And whenever you do super from a class that's being created from another class, the term super, like superficial or superman, it means like above. And so all super does is it says go above to the class that this class was created from and use their thing. And in this case, it's message. So the error class has a message property inside of it. And we're just saying, hey, here, just go above. We're not going to recreate the message property. We're just going to go above to where error was created and just use that one. So that's what's happening there. In case you were like, what does constructor, what does super mean? So we're going to bring in our custom API error here. So one second, let me move my notes around here a bit. There we go. Okay. So we are going to bring in custom API error. It's going to be to acquire. Let's grab our custom error here. There we go. We're going to use object deconstruction again from our HTTP status codes. Actually, I think I need to install that. So hang on, I forgot to install all of the different things needed here. There we go. Status codes equal to require http/status/codes. And remember, we talked about this last week, just as a refresher. This is object destructuring syntax. All it means is that there is an object inside of this HTTP status codes. And inside of that object, there is a property called status codes. And this object destructuring syntax just grabs something in an object by whatever name you put in here, and just sets it to its own variable right here called the same name. So we made a new variable called status codes, which is also the name of a property inside of this status codes object. So we're just going to make our new class here. Oh my goodness, he is so upset today. Sorry. So class bad request. It's going to extend our custom API error. This extends this custom API error. Sorry, let me also pull up the chat in case anyone's saying anything. There we go. Okay, so it's gonna be similar, really similar to going to super our message here. And this is where we put a status code. Hey, comrade, you need to chill out. I'm teaching a class right now, okay? Thanks, buddy. I've been like talking for the last like hour, and he has not been that upset. I think he knows I'm teaching, and he just doesn't been. All right. So there's bad request. It's really just the same thing, just to send that message, except now we have the status code handled in each individual error as opposed to just in the custom error itself. We also had one for unauthenticated. Authenticated.js. Literally the exact same thing. So const custom API error is equal to require. Let's grab this again. I could actually probably have copied and pasted it for a little bit of extra speed. Let's just type things out for extra practice. Status codes. Use that object destructuring syntax again. http-status-codes. Cool. And then just make a new class again. Unauthenticated error extends custom API error. This is going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to make a little constructor here. And just the same as before, we super up to our custom API error this time. I'm pointing at my screen again, like you can see what I'm pointing at. This dot status code equal to status codes dot authorized. And so here, we can exemplify this again. So super here, right? So we have this unauthenticated error, and it extends custom API error. So when we super message here, we're saying, hey, go up to custom API error and grab however we set up message there. But remember that we actually, at custom API error, also did that with extends error. So custom API error's message property is the same as error's message property. And so this super here is just doing it, but one layer deeper, right? So we go, hey, take the message property from custom API error and use that, which is actually just the main error classes message. So this is just basically saying use the same one as just the basic error class. And then we got to export this. Module.exports equals unauthenticated error. There we go. Now he's taking a bath now. Maybe he'll chill out. Okay, so there's that. So now we have all of these, we can get into the real meat of stuff, and that is, of course, the controllers, where a lot of the magic happens here. So what are we doing? we are going to do a couple things. So first, we are just going to need to bring in, oh, this is a little personal thing, right? So in this course, in the video, he says JWT. Now, uh, developers have a lot of their own personal opinions about things. I don't have a ton of like strong opinions about anything in coding. But I hate it when they say JWT because anyone who's anyone pronounces it jot. All right, it's pronounced jot. And also, you don't say jot token because the T in jot is short for token. So you're saying JSON web token token. That's just my personal thing. Of course, you're allowed to say or do whatever you want. I won't judge anybody or correct you if you say JWT or jot token. I might mess up and say it sometimes myself, but just so you know, pretty much anyone anywhere in coding does not say JWT, they say jot. So now that we got that out of the way, we need to bring in our bad request error that we made earlier, which is why I wanted to make it first. We use object destructuring syntax again, actually. I'm going to grab from our errors. So we need to go out one to errors. All right. So, and remember once again that, so we're using the object destruction syntax on the entirety of errors. So actually grabbing this whole thing so that we can use it. Same, just pointing out the object destruction syntax again. So we're making a login first, which is going to check our rec.body for a proper username and password. So login, it's going to be async, of course. We're always going to need rec and res. So we set up our username and our password. And we're once again using object destructuring to grab those from the rec.body, right? So our rec.body should hopefully have a property called username and a property called password. So we're going to check to see if we're missing either of those. So if we don't have a username, or he uses the double pipe operator here, which means or. So this means if we don't have a username or we don't have a password, which means we need both of these. If either of these are missing, we're going to throw ourselves an error here. We're going to literally throw new bad request error. And it's going to say, please provide email and password. Actually, let's do this. Email or password is missing. This is very intentional wording here. And if you might have done this before and experienced this when you're like logging into a website and it says like, oh, your username or your password is not correct. And you're like, well, which one is it? That's intentional. It's a layer of security because you don't know whether it's your email or your password. So someone who is maybe stealing your information from online, they maybe don't have as solid of knowledge as you do as to what the correct password and username is. So it says it's one of them. We're not going to tell you which one. So I'm going to follow that method here by saying the email or the password is missing. Slash incorrect. Here we go. So you don't know which one it is. Okay. So, and he says for here, this is a just for demo normally provided by DB, which we're also just going to do. But we set the ID equal to a new date dot get. He might actually do this in the video. Actually, I skipped that part. I'm just sort of mostly going off of like what's in the final version of the code. So yeah, he actually has a lot of good documentation in this one. So I'm going to follow along with his documentation because it's never bad to be heavy with your documentation. So we're trying to keep the payload small because it's a better experience for the user. A small website like this, probably not a huge issue, but larger ones it would be. So just for the demo, In production, we would use a long, complex, unguessable string value. There's different algorithms for generating these kinds of things. So you wouldn't need to just like, come up with that yourself. But here we're just gonna, just for demo, normally string is much larger and harder to guess. But for here, we're just gonna do a const token. We're going to use the JWT package to sign where we have an ID and a username. We're going to take our process.env.jwt secret, which I actually forgot to set up, so I'm gonna need to do that. And it expires, whoops, oh, whoa, hang on. Expires in, and we're gonna say, okay. There we go. Oh, obviously we're also going to need to res.status 200 here. Oh, wait, this is outside the function. Whoops. Wait, no, I'm getting myself confused. There we go. All right. It's actually all supposed to be inside of it. I don't know why I went outside of it there. Oop. Here we go. And then we just res.status 200 and JSONify. Give them a little message here, let them know they succeeded. User created. And give them their token. And that's this. Okay, so that's the login. And then we also need to get our dashboard function. Whoa, why did I go a million feet? Dashboard. It's also going to be async, of course. Need our res. Whoa. Rec, res. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be pretty simple where we take our lucky number from before. This makes a random lucky number using math.floor to make sure it's a whole integer, and then a random number between 1 and 99. There we go. We haven't used math.random. What it's basically doing is it chooses a random number between 0 and 1. And so then you multiply it by whatever you want to change the value to. It's going to be in between 0 and before the number that you're setting, right? So if you actually wanted 100 to be a possibility, you would go 101 here. And then we would choose between 0 and 100 before 100 and 0 and 101. So like 100.5, 100.999 would be the case there. And then just a quick res.status 200, JSONify that where, oops. So we need a message. Excuse me. All right. We need to string interpolate here and saying hello. And then we give our rec.user.username. Okay. Oops. Comma needed there. There we go. Okay. So then the secret. So here is your authorized data and give them their lucky number, which is your lucky number is, and we just used lucky number from up here. Lucky number. Oh, I did lucky name. Why did I do that? Getting all of my lessons mixed around. Okay, lucky number. That's it. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's export it. Module.exports. equals, bam. We need our login, we need our dashboard, dashboard. I don't know what's up with my typing today. That's it. So, step-by-step breakdown. What are we doing here? So we are first checking our rec.body for everything there. It issues a JWT, right? We're validating if either field is missing. We throw our custom bad request error. We're using day of the month as a stand-in. Of course, normally in our DB, MongoDB is going to create its own ID. It's going to be underscore ID, but we're just making one here. We're signing our token. The payload is going to include that ID that we just made and the username. We're going to have a secret JWT, which I need to make up, and expires in 30 days. It's going to respond with a token for our client for future requests. All right. He mentioned in the video that it is important here to have our express.json because otherwise rec.body is not going to be defined. We need to have a JWT secret, which I will do in a second because it does need to, it has like my, MongoDB information in it and stuff. Yeah. Okay, so that is pretty much that. Yeah. So we'll move on. So that was the controllers. He makes this auth middleware here. All right, so the purpose of this, of course, is just to authenticate here. So auth also, I don't remember if he mentions it or not, because yeah, like I said, I skimmed through it at like double speed. But auth is actually a two-part word. It means both authorization and authentication to make sure that both you verify who this person is and then checks to see what that person is allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So when you see auth and you're wondering, like, someone maybe asks you what auth stands for, auth actually technically stands for two things. All right. It's not just authentication and it's not just authorization. It's both of them together. So that's why we often just shorten it to auth. So we're going to need our JWT thing again. So we'll bring in JWTs, require JSON web token. We bring in our unauthenticated error, right? Because this is where we're checking our auth. So if it's not authenticated, we need our error for that. Unauthenticated error is equal to require. So we've got to hop out one to our errors. There we go. So he's just making a straight up function called authentication middleware. Authentication middleware. Of course, obviously, it's going to be async. It's going to require rec and res and next, actually, this time. Whoa, res and next. So we need our header, our auth header. So this is where most of the time authentication is going to live in the part of the request body called the header. So rec.headers.authorization. So once again, breaking this down, right? So when you make a request to any kind of like URL, right? You're making a request to perform a particular one of the HTTP protocols, get, post, update, delete, all that kind of stuff. And it's going to have different parts. There's a request object, right? And it's got all these different parts to it. We've seen some of them like the request body, where we put stuff like our username and our password. There's not just the body, though. There's also the head, which is also containing other important stuff. And that's where the auth stuff lives. So once again, this is not like something made up by me right now. This is a pre-existing an important part of the request response cycle, and in particular, the request object that gets sent anytime you make a request to anything on the internet. So Similar to our login, we're checking to see if we have all the right stuff. So we need our auth header. We need it. It's important. They don't have their auth header. It means that they either don't have authentication or it's in the wrong place. Either or, that's not good. So if they don't have their auth header, or if it's the case that their auth header, they do have it, but it doesn't starts with bearer. And this is because we always the token that we create, right? Let's go back here. Remember when we sign our JWT and all of this logging and stuff is successful, it gives us this token, right? That is often called the bearer token. It's always going to be called that pretty much. So if someone is maybe, this is again for like security reasons, maybe someone's trying to make up a fake like authentication token, fake JWT, then they might have mistakenly not set it up correctly. If it doesn't start with bearer, it's definitely not going to be correct. So we're checking not just that the auth header exists, but making sure that it's properly formatted, because only a human would mess up the formatting. If everything works correctly, then the JWT is going to be successfully signed and created, and a token is going to be sent to us. And it's always going to start with bearer. So this is just another level of security. So if either of these things are not the case, if we're failing on one of these fronts, we're going to throw that unauthenticated error, and we're going to say no token provided. Actually, well, let's change it again to be vague intentionally again. Token is either missing or improperly formatted. There we go. So now they don't know which one it is. Is it that if it's a hacker trying to hack our website, did I forget to include the auth header at all? Or is it improperly formatted? Now they don't know, and they have to check. It's going to take them longer to figure out how to hack us. And then we're going to split that token at the auth header. So we're going to take our token. We're going to go into our auth header. Going to split it by an empty space at index 1. This is where it's going to live. All right. Now that we've got that, we're going to make a try catch block. So we've got our auth header. Everything's worked. We're assuming that at this point, we've successfully sent a properly formatted auth header. So we're going to decode it now because JWTs are going to be encoded naturally. So JWT.verify. So we take our token. We feed in our process.env.jwt secret. Oh man, I actually don't know what this is supposed to be right here. So this might actually have been something I should have researched ahead of time. But I think it's just checking to see if I have the proper JWT secret in here. To basically like a password. I don't remember though. So maybe once I get to that point, someone can remind me. Next. Otherwise, we're gonna catch our error. I'm just gonna do ERR. He does full error there, but I like ERR. It's just a personal preference. So we're gonna throw a new unauthenticated error if there's any kind of error here at all. Wait, I just did this. Whoops. Equals decoded. Right. So again, what's happening here? We're using object destructuring syntax. Whoops, decoded. There we go. Using object destructuring syntax to pull the ID property and the username property out of decoded. Right. So decoded is an object. It's going to have the ID and the username. It's certainly going to at this point, right? Because if everything worked correctly, then we're going to decode our JWT and it's going to contain the same stuff that we encoded, right? And let's go back again. Remember, what do we sign our JWT with? We've got our username and we've got our ID, right? And then it gets turned into a secret code that we can then decode. Whoops, whoopsies, whoa. We can decode here, right? So this is the same thing. We're going to grab those using the object destructuring syntax. It's got an ID property, so we're just going to grab that ID property and just use it here. It's got a username property. We know that too. We're just going to grab that username property and use it here. That's that. So then we set our rec.user to be just to have this ID and this username. There we go. And if that doesn't work, we're going to throw a new unauthenticated error. And this one, I like what he says here. He says just not authorized to access this route. All right. So bam. Once again, what are we doing here? We're first grabbing our auth header. That's where the JWT token is going to live. I said it, JWT token. That's where the JWT is going to live if everything works correctly. Then we're going to check just to make sure, just to be extra sure that everything's working properly. Make sure we have that auth header and make sure that auth header was created by the JWT program, by the JWT library, and not some malicious actor. If that's the case, if we did everything correctly and no one's trying to hack us, we're going to grab our token from the auth header. Then we're going to decode, try to decode at least, that JWT token. I said it again. Decode our JWT. It's going to grab that token that we are holding on to, and it's going to check our secret JWT password code thing. Then we're just going to grab those values from the JWT, the ID and the username, the important things for checking who we are. Set our requests user, right? Again, similar to rec.headers.authorization. This rec.user, not something I made up. This is a pre-existing thing in the request body. It's checking to see there's a user section, of course. And then we just move on to the next piece of middleware. And so this is another good example of, because a couple weeks ago, one of the students asked, well, sometimes we have next and sometimes we don't. And when do we know that we want to use next and when we don't? And the answer is when we want to actually have this piece of middleware that's using next, then run something else afterwards, another function, another piece of middleware, right? And this is a perfect example because you want to not just authenticate when you're doing something, you want to make sure that it's okay for them to access this route and then actually send them to the place they're trying to go, or let them post something or delete something or update something, right? So that's why we're using next here, is that we're running this whole function. And if everything is good, everything is Gucci, then we go to the next function. So in this way, we're able to make multiple things run at once. All right. So that was actually the bulk of the new code that is written. Was there any issues, any questions that anyone had on any of this stuff? Either of these files cause any issues or confusions for anybody? Maybe it's just it's hard to come up with questions yet because it's so new, which I also understand. There's a lot of new stuff. Backend stuff can be just so difficult. But that's why they pay you the big bucks if you're a backend developer or a full stack developer, is because all this stuff is very complicated. Okay. So that was most of it, like I said. So we're just going to set up pretty much our routes here. So this is just basically the repository, just like normal routes for what we should do at all the different when we hit these different routes, right? So we need express, of course. So const, we need express the correct number of S's. Oh my goodness, why can't I type today? Require express. At least Comrade's being quiet now. And we need our router from express. That's why we need it. capital router. So we only have two routes right now, our login and our dashboard, of course. So const login dashboard is going to be equal to require. Let's jump out to our controllers. No, oops. Jump out to controllers, yep, and then to main. There we go. We're also going to need our auth middleware for this stuff. Const auth authentication middleware. Yep. It's going to be equal to require. We could probably, he shortens it to auth middleware. I'm just going to call it the exact same name that it's called in our middleware section. Just so there's definitely no confusion. Middleware / auth. There we go. So there's just two routes, right? First one is our dashboard. So router.route. When we go to the /dashboard, when we're trying to get there specifically, we're going to feed it our auth middleware because you can't access the dashboard unless you're authorized, right? You're authorized and authenticated. I guess authenticated and authorized, right? Because the dashboard is for you've logged in and now you're viewing your specific dashboard, right? It's got your name on it and everything. It's got your lucky number. You don't want anyone seeing that kind of stuff. So we need our auth middleware here. And if it passes all the checks from our auth middleware, then we just render the dashboard. Similar thing for our login, but we don't need the authentication middleware because we're not logged in yet. Login. We're going to post to our login, right? We're going to create a new login, a new user rather, in module.exports router. And then we just put that straight into our app.js, actually, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so we are adding a new router. It should go here. Main router to require. So routes here, yes. And then it is main.js. And then we also put it, but where should it go? It should go in our middleware right here. So it's going to be app.use. Got to be below our express.json because as mentioned, we need to JSONify the stuff from our rec.body to make sure that we're properly getting our username and our password. So app.use, we're going to API /v1, just that. Main router. I think everything else is the same. Yeah. So that should be that. The only other thing is to make sure that I have a jot secret. I didn't watch that part of the video. Could someone refresh me or remind me what am I supposed to be doing for my secret jot? Is it supposed to, could it just be anything? Does it need to be something specific? Someone who watched the videos, let me know because I missed that part. Ah, it's a key generator. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, whoops, I opened it on my PC. Let's see, where is Zoom? Where's my Zoom? Where is it? That's weird. I'm just gonna go to the website itself. So it's called acte.ltd/util/ bam. Nice. Not sure if it's supposed to be one of these specifically. Probably just use 256. It's the most similar to something we'd already be using. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second to maintain my privacy and my secrecy. So it's called I'm just going into my .env file right now, doing JWT underscore secret. It's going to be equal to that thing that I just made. Okay, let's close my env. Here we go, very cool. And do it again, awesome. Okay. So I think that's it. We should just be able to run it now. Let's is it npm run start to start it? Nope. Well, we're getting an error rather. Let's see. Cannot find module errors in controllers.main. I'm probably misspelling it somewhere. It's in a couple places actually. App.js. Online. Okay, well, this one is saying at line controllers main JS line 2. There's this. Boo. Is it because of the weird object destruction syntax that he does? Module exports bad request. Because I did notice that he is doing it slightly differently than before, than what I'm normally familiar with. Let's do bad request like this. Does that fix it? Let's try again. Still gonna throw me an error, but does it get rid of that error? It does. Okay. I'm not sure why I did it that way, to be honest. Let's just fix them all here. So in auth, let's just go to unauthenticated. Here we go. And then in routes.main. Oh, and because it's importing those. Okay. Let's try running it again. Still crashing. What's the issue now? Let's see. Route.get requires a callback function, but got object. All right, classic error. So this is on line 8. That's this one here. .get requires a callback, dashboard. This seems fine. But it's definitely, this error specifically is pretty much always because something in here is incorrect. What did I do wrong? Let's see. Nope, dashboard spelled correctly. Authentication middleware is fine. Let's make sure that that is what I called it. Oh, I think I'm not exporting it, which is definitely an issue. Module.exports equals authentication middleware. See if that fixes it. Oh yeah, that was it. I just forgot to export it. I get so excited about moving on to the next file. Okay, now that we did that, everything should be fine. Okay. I think technically he also is running on port 5000 in his code, but I think that's the only other difference. So let's go ahead and open up Postman. Let's create a new request. So we are trying to get to login and dashboard. So first is checking our login. So it's going to be, let's check our app.js again to make sure. Sorry, yes, /API/v1/login is what it's going to be. So we're going to local host 3000. Let's just, I'm just going to copy this one. And then it's actually going to be login. All right. So we have a couple things with no query parameters. Instead, in our body, make sure it's raw, make sure it's in JSON format. So we want to supply a username and a password here. So my username is just going to be Abe123. My password is going to be sandwich. There we go. Okay. I believe that's all we need. Let's go back to our controllers to make sure. Let's get rid of all this other stuff also. Bam, bam, get rid of all this, get rid of all this. Okay. So we are looking for a username and our pass and a password from our rec.body. Here we can see that. So that's what we know we're gonna need to supply in our rec.body. So that's what I did. Let's just send it, see what happens. Oh, and it's supposed to be a post also. Great, user created. And here's my token. Awesome. We can see it here. Let's grab this token. Copy. Just to be safe, I think it should already be saved in our headers here. No, it's not. Well, good thing we saved it. Okay. User agents, other stuff. Okay. So now that we did that, we should be able to try and get dashboard. Something went wrong. Try again later. I'm probably missing something somewhere. So when we go there, we're supposed to, so this is running through our auth middleware. So it's checking for our auth header from our rec.headers.authorization. I'm gonna need to manually input this somewhere. I think here it should be like bearer token. And then the value is going to be that. Something like that, I think. Oh, here's the bearer token right here. Neat. Bam, like that. Whoa. Header name must be a valid HTTP token, bearer token. Okay, so I might have messed it up by doing this one. There we go. So now we've got this bearer token here. I don't usually test auth stuff like this on Postman. And I did not watch that part of the video either. Oh, there we go. Awesome. So was that. My lucky number is 96. Nice. That's the year I was born. All right. That's that. That's pretty much it. A lot of work to do very little, but it goes a long way in terms of authorization. And you saw what happened when someone maybe like a non-malicious actor would have tried to do the thing I did earlier, right? Try to make their own bearer token. It wasn't working properly, and it threw us an error. That wouldn't have happened if we had not set up all these security measures. It would have just thrown us right in here. So that's most of it. Any questions? Do we want to go over any part of what we've done so far? Auth, it can be quite complicated, quite intimidating. I'm not super hot at it myself personally. So having to do with bearer tokens and signing JWTs and all that stuff, something that I'm personally shaky on also. So I totally feel you on not maybe being entirely sure how all this works. Hard to see like all the different moving parts, like the grand vision of what's happening here. So if there's any kind of issues that you're having with any of this, hopefully I can explain it to you in a way that helps. Do we have any questions like that? Give you some time. We'll drink some water. Chat. Cool. All right, no questions at the moment. That's totally fine. I get it. But yeah, if you always have questions, you can always, of course, DM me, and I will be glad to answer them when I have the time. But yeah, that is most of what happened in the last course. We could try and review it again if that would be helpful for people. Would that be helpful if I just maybe went over everything again? Would that benefit people? If people don't have any questions, would people like to see that? Okay, yeah, let's just go through everything again. So, of course, broad scheme, what's happening? We're logging in, we're creating a new user, and we're wanting to, hey, don't start. We're wanting to first create a user and then store that user so that every single request that we make from the point of login is checking, hey, who is this person? And is this person allowed to do these things, to do whatever they're trying to do, right? And this happens on every website, right? You log into Facebook, for example, right? Of course, you wouldn't be able to go and edit your profile unless Facebook verify that you are this person, right? And you are, of course, allowed to change their profile or make posts under their name, all that kind of stuff. So we're just setting up all of that stuff. So the very first thing we want to do is create our user, right? So what are we doing? Normally, in an actual website, we wouldn't be doing it this way necessarily. We would be, there would be a line of text that says, input a new username, input a new password. But here we're just doing it raw. But either way, when you're creating a new user, you're saying, hello, here is my new username and password. I'm containing it inside of my rec.body. I often liken a lot of these backend stuff to being at the DMV because it's an equally painful experience. And it has a lot of similarities to going to the DMV, right? Just like, when you make a new request, right? Post, get, update, delete, you're similar to going to the DMV, you need to go to a specific line and you need to have the required documents, right? You can't just walk up and say, hey, I'd like to, say that I changed my address or I would like to get a new ID card, right? What do they say when you request a new ID, for example, right? It's really similar to actually creating a new user, right? You're saying like, hey, I would like to create a new instance of like this ID, right? I'm not just going to say, okay, yeah, totally. They're going to say, well, who are you? Do you have proof that you are who you say you are? Do you have like a proof of your address? Do you have an old ID card or a driver's license or something, right? They're checking, they're verifying to make sure you are who you say you are. And so you bring it in a little folder, right? That's what's happening here. You're saying, hey, I have this username and this password. It's contained in my rec.body, which is kind of like the folder you bring to the DMV. And just like there, if you're missing something, if you don't have the correct documents, the correct verifications, they're going to say no. You're like, go back in line or go get the stuff. Similar here, we're just going to throw an error. If everything's all good, then we are going to create a JWT, which is a JSON web token, right? It's basically a encoded secret version of our stuff that we want to encode. In here, it's our username and our password, and it's checking with our ID and our username. It's checking a secret key that is basically like our little code that we say, hey, when I say this magic word, you're going to know it's fine to decode all this stuff. And again, going to keep using the DMV reference. If you gave them all the correct information, they'll say, yes, we will create a new ID card for you. Similar here, if you brought all the correct stuff, put it in the correct place, then they'll say, yes, that is fine. Similar here, if you included your username and your password in the rec.body where we're supposed to go, it will say, yes, you've created your user. Here is a special token that you can use later to securely grab the stuff that was encoded in your JWT. And similar here, right? The dashboard would be like, I don't know, going somewhere that you need your ID, right? Like at least here in California, I think it's nationwide, right? You're going to need like a real ID soon to be able to fly, right? Maybe that's what this is sort of like, is it's checking now, hey, I want to go like on a flight. Well, do you have the correct ID? The correct like a real ID or something. So that's sort of like what the dashboard is doing here. It's like a place that you can only go if you are able to show that you are who you say you are. Could also be like, a bar or something, but you also need to be 21 for that. So that's what's happening here in our login. I hope that DMV reference doesn't create flashbacks for you and makes a little bit more sense as to what we're doing here. We're just providing the proper information to be able to create a new user, similar to how we're providing the correct information to DMV to get a new ID card or something like that. So we also have the code for actually checking all this authentication stuff. And once again, it's really, really similar. So again, we are checking for the auth header. It's similar to, imagine if it would be even worse. Imagine when you go to the DMV, you need like a special folder. And like if the correct documents aren't in that special folder, then you'll be denied, even if you have the correct documents. That's what this is like, saying that you need to have the correct documents and they need to be in the correct place. So that's what this const auth header is grabbing. It's grabbing the documents out of your folder. And this is just making sure that they are the correct documents. So if all that's the case, then we're going to grab that token from earlier, right? The token, let's go back. Actually, we can put these side by side probably. Hang on. There we go. Let's give ourselves a little more space now. So now we can see these side by side, right? So when everything was okay, and everything went fine with our login, it signs the JWT and gives us a token. We go over here and grab that token from the auth header, right? Our special folder where all of our proper documents are living. Then we take that token, and then we say, all right, now that everything's fine, we've verified that you are you. Let's take our secret encoded stuff, that the JWT, right? It's basically like what's a good analogy? It's almost kind of like a locker, right? Like you need a special key in order to open your little safe locker or something, right? So now that we've gotten through all the parts where we made sure, yes, you're you, now we can open back up the locker and grab all of our information, right? So we need our token. So the key is actually like a two-part thing. We need the token that we were given here. Remember this one? And also our JWT secret. We take those things, we unlock the locker, and what's inside? The ID and the username that we originally put in there. Now that we have these things and they were safely transported through the web in a way that can't be grabbed, we set the rec.user, which is again just a section of the request body. Similar, just keep thinking of like our folder, right? We have a special section that stores our personal information. Set our username here to be that username, and set our ID equal to be that ID. And if anything goes wrong in any part of that, we say, hey, you're not allowed to be here because you haven't proved you are who you say you are. All right, hoping the analogies aren't making things more confusing. I'm a big person on using analogies to make things make more sense. Okay. And that's actually pretty much the main like complicated stuff. Then of course we just have we set these up so that when we go to our dashboard, we are this is similar to checking someone's ID, right? I would like to go here. Well, are you allowed to be here? Let me see your ID. Let me see your authentication. And then it goes through that. If everything goes fine, then you're allowed to see the page. And then just the app.js where we make sure that our router is there. So that in a nutshell, once again, is what's going on here. We are requesting an ID, right? I'm going to use the analogy one more time. We're requesting an ID. We're providing the correct information to say that to allow us to create an ID, right? They're checking to make sure everything's fine. If everything's fine, they're like, sure, we're going to put all of this secure stuff in this locker so that you can take it, and even if it gets stolen, no one will be able to do anything with it. All right. Here's the key, the token. Here's the key to your locker. So then you hit the dashboard, which checks for your ID. So you go there, you say, hey, I would like to go to the dashboard. They say, well, where's your ID? That's when we hit auth, right? We check to see if you have your ID. You do. So then you can open up your locker once you've gotten through, set your ID and your username, and then you can view your stuff. And this would happen pretty much anywhere. Pretty much anything now on our routes here are all going to go through this authentication middleware. Anything that is going to involve any sort of knowing that you are you. So like, if you're going to your dashboard, if you're going to like a profile, if you're going to like, on Facebook, just even your main feed, because you're able to post stuff. So you need to know that you're you in order to post stuff. Any of that kind of stuff, you're going to need to pass through our authentication middleware. These are called protected routes. This is a term he might have used in the lesson, but any route you go to where it's checking to make sure you are who you say you are is called a protected route because it's protected against people who aren't able to prove they are who they say they are, or who are not able to prove that they're allowed to be there. So we have our login route and our very first protected route. And I think that is a long-winded way of going over everything again. Hopefully that was helpful. Awesome. Well, no problem. Thank you. I'm glad everyone showed up today. And yeah, I'm going to stop the recording so we don't have extra time on that.